Okay, so if we're looking here at this map, we just talked about our lines of latitude. We know right here this is the equator at 0 degrees, right? We know our equator, we also know our prime meridian at 0. But today we are just focusing on our lines of latitude. Remember, if we're thinking of a ladder, these run from west to east. They never cross over. They're like the steps of our ladder. Ladder, latitude, that's how we're going to remember them. So we have the equator here at 0 degrees. Now, these that I labeled for us are really important lines of latitude. Remember, they're running west to east or east to west. You won't have to remember the names of these different lines of latitude. You will just have to remember equator. So I went ahead and labeled them for you, and also the degrees. So if we're at the equator and we go north to 23.5 degrees north, we're at the Tropic of Cancer. If we go up to 66.5 degrees north of the equator, we're at the Arctic Circle. I'll go back to the equator, start at 0. If we go down south, 23.5 degrees south, we're at the Tropic of Capricorn. And if we go down 66.5 degrees south of the equator, we're at the Antarctic Circle. Okay, so we're going to be talking about climate zones. So we know that climate zones, after watching the Ed Puzzle video, is a period of time, different weather happening over a long period of time. So where we live in North America, we experience 4 different seasons. From summer, winter, fall, spring. Other parts of the world, they don't experience all 4 seasons, or maybe they have really cold temperatures or really hot temperatures. Now, why is that? Well, it's because of these certain lines of latitude. The equator, the different tropics, the different Arctic and Antarctic circles, that determines what kind of weather you're going to get. So we're going to start at the equator at 0 degrees. Okay, so 0 degrees is our equator. So I just wanted to go over it. I highlighted those lines in black so they really stood out because the next part we're going into the different climate zones. Okay, so all I did was make these lines black. Equator at 0 degrees right here. Everything in between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, all in this area where the equator is I'm going to highlight it, let's say orange. This entire zone in here is called our Tropic Zone. So this entire part in here by the equator, this is called the Tropic Zone. Let's move this tropics up. Okay, so that's our tropic zone. By the equator, it's hot, hot, hot. That's why I picked the color orange, so we can think that it's hot there, okay, in the tropic zone. Now, going up north or south of the equator after we get out of the tropic zone, now we have what's called the temperate zone. Now, this temperate zone is above the tropic zone to the north as well as to the south. This temperate zone now, and this is what we experience, the 4 seasons. So sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. We have all 4 different seasons. So I'm going to color yellow. This entire area is the temperate zone. In between the next set of black lines, the Tropic of Cancer and Arctic Circle. Now, below the Tropic of Capricorn, in between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Antarctic Circle, is the temperate zone to the south. And the last zone, because there are 3 climate zones, the last climate zone is the polar zone. Now, the polar zone kind of gives it away based on its name, polar zone. If we think of a polar bear, they're in a cold atmosphere, a cold environment. So the polar zone is cold. So this whole top section is the polar zone to the north of the equator, and to the south of the equator, below the Antarctic Circle, is the polar zone as well. Okay, so I just went over that quickly just so you can visually see. Everywhere by this equator is hot, hot, hot. We're in the tropic zone. Then we move up. We're now in the temperate zone. We're experiencing all 4 seasons. And then we get extremely cold in the polar zone. Now back to the equator. Now we're going south. We are in the yellow, the temperate zone. We're experiencing 4 seasons. But then we go below the Antarctic Circle and we're in the polar zone again. It's going to be cold. Those are the 3 climate zones. Again, you will not have to remember these different lines of latitudes and their degrees. You will have to remember the equator is at 0 degrees latitude, right? And you will have to remember these 3 different climate zones. Tropic zone is always at the equator, and then when you move up, you get temperate zone, polar zone. Start at tropics again, moving down, temperate, and then polar. Okay, one last thing that I want to go over you are going to get this piece of paper on a PowerPoint slide, and there will be different circles labeled. So right here you can see a dark blue circle, here will be a green, maybe a lighter green, so there will be a purple. You will have to identify which climate zone those different dots are in. One last thing, because I need to make sure you guys are watching these videos entirely to make sure that you guys are understanding the content. I am going to give you a password, and you're going to then take this password, showing me that you listened to the entire video, and you're going to enter it where you see the word password on your assignment. So the password for this lesson is going to be polar. Okay? So make sure you write down the password so I know that you watched this video entirely.